Thank you, Bill, for that introduction. Much more than I deserve. I do like to be on picket lines and out in protest, so that part is true.
That's fun. So anyway, my name is Carolyn Bowden. I'm with the Healthy California campaign, also with the California Nurses Association. I'm not a registered nurse, I'm a community organizer. So I want to address a couple questions that were asked of Dr. Poland first, and then I'll get into my slideshow. One thing that someone asked about, was the situation for doctors if this gets passed. So first of all, the practice environment for doctors will improve because you won't be spending so much time trying to sort out the multiple payers, all the insurance companies, whether it's Medicare, whether it's Blue Cross, whether it's Aetna, right? So you will, that amount of that won't be your practice anymore. Your practice will be all about taking care of your patients, which I'm guessing most doctors went to medical school to take care of patients. Maybe I'm wrong. And you will have a SWIFT payment system. I know that in my personal life, Delta Dental took 9 months to pay my dentist for a cleaning and x-rays. That's crazy. Why does it take 9 months? With the Medicare for All type system, it will be much swifter. You'll get your payments in a timely fashion, and you won't have to wait and argue with the insurance companies over whether the procedure you think your patient needs, you'll get paid for or not, whether you do that procedure for that patient. And also, you'll reduces high administrative costs. You won't have that. And somebody mentioned at another town hall the doctor shortage. Well, most doctors will be able to see more patients because they won't be spending a lot of time on admin. So there are probably ways, once we get deeper into the bill and once we get into a couple years down the road where we can work with medical schools, but that's down the road. But I just wanted to address that first question about cost, about expenses, or how much doctors will make, because in the long run, you're actually going to be able to spend more time with your patients, and you probably will still make a significant living. And also to deal with the retiree health care. Currently, in the state of California, the unfunded retiree health care liability is $150 billion. That's billion dollars. So a single payer system would address that. So even retirees that are now retiring and have a very good, what they view as a very good retiree health benefit, a Medicare for All system wouldn't be that much different. And we would address the state budget issue of which many cities like Alpine, San Francisco, San Jose, Oakland, K-12 school districts, University of California, the state of California, they're all part of that $150 billion unfunded medical liability, retiree medical liability. So just to address a couple of those things. So anyway, why SB 562? Or who is Healthy California? Healthy California is made up of 350 organizations, 6 million Californians who believe everyone has the right to guaranteed health care. A lot of community organizations, a lot of labor organizations, the All Care Alliance, Physicians for a National Health Program, they're part of Healthy California. And for years we were all kind of going along different tracks, right? And then when this bill came up, we all decided to unify and to fight for SB 562. So that's who Healthy California is. And so the state of healthcare, this slide's a little bit old. There's nothing called the American Health Care Act, but you could say the GOP's healthcare plan, whatever that might be. It sets up a loss for a lot of people for healthcare. The private even makes it more out of pocket, so you'll have to buy your healthcare if you have Medicaid or Medicare now. There'll be more expenses for you. There'll be more people uninsured or underinsured, and even now under the ACA, there's 2.7 million uninsured folks. So healthcare today in the U.S., I'll just run through some of this. You guys might already know most of this, but somebody was talking about utilization. On this chart, I've just got a little, no, I guess it doesn't have a little pointer.
The red button at the top.
Ah, okay. So you see how all these lines have a different thickness, right? So that thickness indicates utilization. How much these people in these countries use healthcare. Japan, they use a lot of healthcare, but they don't spend as much as some other countries. They're one of the highest in utilization. And their health outcomes, average life expectancy is higher than the average, right? So then you have some other countries, South Korea, Canada, all higher utilization than some. What do you think the U.S. is on this? Does anybody know? Do you see the U.S. on there? Yeah. So we spend almost twice as much on average as all these other countries. And look where our life expectancy is. It's even below average. And our utilization is really low. And all utilization is people are actually seeking health care. They're actually taking care of themselves. So here's economic freedom scores. This is from the Heritage Foundation. So this is an interesting slide to have in here. So it's the economic freedom score. You all know what that means. Little dog whistle term there. Economic freedom. Hong Kong is the highest economic freedom score by the Heritage Foundation. Guess what? They have universal health care. The United States is number 12. We don't have universal health care. We're 76. Our freedom score, our economic freedom score in the United States is 76%. So, and then the drug costs in the U.S. are a lot higher than any place else. And healthcare costs so much. If you look, so here's something that might be interesting to you in this room. If you'll notice the brown on the bottom of this chart, starting in 1970, this is the growth of physicians in the country. The yellow is the growth of administrators. So that's where all the healthcare dollars are going. It's not going to medical professionals, right? And then you have the cost of healthcare seems to go right along with the administrators, right? And there's also something kind of interesting that happened. Anybody know what happened in 1973? The HMO Act was passed. Richard Nixon signed into law the HMO Act. And look what happened after that. So here you go. Here's some prices from around the world for various procedures. Many of you are probably familiar with these procedures. This was in 2013, so it's a little dated, but it still is probably very true today. I don't need to go through these. Here we have a chart about select population health outcomes. So let's look where the U.S. is on that chart. Let's compare us to some of these other countries. Let's see here. We have the highest infant mortality rate. Where is that? That's this one, highest infant mortality rate. We have the highest percentage of senior citizens with comorbidities. We have the lowest life expectancy. So that's where we are with this health care system that nobody wants to change, right? It's not very good. So, and when I talk to a labor audience or people that negotiate with their bosses for wage increases, I often like to point out, use this slide, because this green line on the bottom here is the actual take-home pay, the increase in take-home pay that workers have had since 1970. The blue line is how much each employee costs an employer. What do you think that difference is between the cost of employees to the employers and the actual take-home pay of the employee? Yeah. And guess what? Look at when it started splitting. What's that year right there when it started splitting? Yeah. And here you go. Here's something to talk about. It points out that even though with the advent of the ACA, individuals and families still feel like they're paying too much for their health care. Right? The cost of health insurance each month, it's still at 37%. Still think it's too difficult to pay for their cost of health care. Co-pays for the doctor visits, it's still difficult. And deductibles. I've heard stories of people that have $6,000 deductibles and they don't even bother going to the doctor because they can't afford the, why, you know? And so how is that good for health outcomes? So here's an inconvenient truth about our healthcare system. Most families pay on average $18,000 per year with premiums that high. 36% are still delaying care, 35% can't pay their medical bills, and 80% of healthcare spending goes only to 20% of the patients. So in other words, you know, most of the healthcare spending is for the most sickest, for the sickest among us. And the thing is that if we leveled out the playing field a little bit and had a single-payer system, the sicker people could come in and get their diabetes medication before something serious happened. Or they could come in and seek treatment for high blood pressure before something serious happened. And so the cost would balance out, right? And I think this is interesting. There's another slide in here that I just love. There's no antitrust controls on the health insurance industry. You know, there's only one other industry in the country where there's no antitrust. Do you know what it is?
The Catholic Church. Baseball.
Major League Baseball, you got it. So the health insurance industry and Major League Baseball, the only two corporations or only two industries in this country that don't have that aren't covered by antitrust laws. So, and also, I don't know, I read recently that Blue Cross is leaving the California market. Is that true? Do you doctors know about that? Yeah. And did anybody see the Sacramento Bee article, maybe it was 10 days ago, where it had a huge chart of how high the increases are going to be in California throughout the state? It's pretty incredible. So, and maybe here's a reason why. Because they're not paying for people's health care. I mean, 20%, at least 20% of health insurance costs go to CEO salaries, administrative fees, and marketing. I was taking Bart, I live in Oakland, and I was taking Bart to go see Summer of Love at the Dion, thank you. And I got off at the Powell Street station, no, it was Embarcadero, and the entire station, poles were wrapped all over the floor, was Blue Cross Blue Shield. They were advertising. The entire Embarcadero station was covered in advertising for Blue Cross Blue Shield. How many patients do you think that helped? Yeah. So, this is one of the reasons why we've moved to try to put SB 562 in play here in the state of California. We want to have healthcare coverage. We want to cover all of these things for people. I'm very lucky to work for the California Nurses Association. I have good health insurance. I can guarantee you that. I have chosen the Kaiser option. So I pay dental out of pocket. I have to have a supplemental for my dental.
Right.
I have to, let's see, the other one, chiropractic or acupuncture. That's all out of pocket. Mental health, what's that? Kaiser doesn't, and I need that, but Kaiser doesn't really offer that. So, and I know that CNA pays top dollar for insurance for their employees, and we've chosen Kaiser. I chose Kaiser as my provider, as my insurance company, and we need all these things to be covered for everybody. So, Dr. Poland talked about this, so I don't need to go over it, but it's true. $404 billion is how much a new system would cost. But it's interesting because the politicians, they all have the same line. It's going to cost $400 billion, and as he said, it's not new money. We already spent $368 billion in the state of California, and we will save 18%, which puts us down to $331 billion. So we've been doing some legislative visits lately, and the assembly folks all have the same 4 talking points. They all have the same 4 talking points, and the top one is it's going to cost us way too much money. But they don't factor in how much money they would save the state of California. And as I pointed out, first of all, we'd save $150 billion in unfunded retiree medical benefits, right? That's a good place to start for saving. So, We want to cover everybody, so if we stay in the system we are now, but try to cover everybody with health insurance, it's going to cost us $404 billion. If we move to a single-payer system, it's going to cost us $331 billion. I don't need to go over the numbers, he already did that. So, here's some more, how much we can save. Medicare, the administrative costs for Medicare for all system are around 3%. The administrative cost for the private health insurance that we have now is anywhere between 20 and 30%. So we would save money and doctors would have a much more efficient operation. So he talked about the financing. I don't need to go through that. Does anybody want me to go through the financing again? Okay.
Actually, I do.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So we would put
No, I have a question.
You have a question, so we will get back to it then. So, businesses can grow. I mean, we've been working with the Business Alliance, and they've put together a really good packet, and they really believe, and they've talked about how much businesses could save if we went to this system, businesses that now provide health insurance for their employees, and it would also level the playing field, so you wouldn't have company A that doesn't pay for health insurance, and company B that does pay for health insurance. So employees would go to either one, or it would level the playing field as far as the profits go, right? So they would be able to compete more fairly, because you do have, like, for instance, Walmart, you've got Costco on one hand that pays for health insurance, and you've got Walmart that actually uses government money to pay for health insurance for their employees, because their employees are on Medicaid.
Mm-hmm.
So we would save, families would save a lot of money. Here's some numbers on that. And here's a small little calculation. We look at the 2.3% tax or premium, or whatever you want to call it, fee, tax, premium. If it's 2.3% and you spend $200 a month on cleaning supplies, etc., you would pay $4.60 a month, as opposed to what folks pay now. So I'm going to skip this one because none of us, I don't know, do any of you go to the Ritz-Carlton? Okay, sorry. So this is basically how it would work. Everything would go into the Healthy California Trust Fund, and out of that would be prescriptions, healthcare providers, and coordinated care services, kind of like the Kaiser model now, where it's a coordinated system, so you know who your providers are, and then your charting and all that would be kept in a safe place. And so where we are now is we are pushing. And I know there are some that are bothered that we're putting pressure on Speaker Rendon, but right now Speaker Rendon is the only one who holds the keys in his hand. And it sounds like back in April, Governor Brown and others were trying to stop this bill from moving forward. I don't know that for sure, but from what Dr. Pollan said, it looked like he was interested. And then when he found out, it could be done, then the brakes were pumped. So what we hear from the other folks in the assembly is that they're going to set up a select committee. Usually what a select committee means is we're going to lift up the carpet, shove it underneath, and we'll get back to you next year, right? We don't want that. So what we're asking folks to do is get engaged in this process and help us put pressure on all these assembly people and let them know that their constituents, nurses, doctors, business people want SB 562 to move forward. Right now it's on the shelf, and if you hear and you read the articles, they say, well, it needs to be fixed, it needs to be fixed. Well, there's nothing that can happen while the bill is on the shelf. So what they need to do is put it to the Assembly Health Committee, put it on the floor, and let people offer amendments, let people debate it, let people do what they need to do. But right now, Speaker Rendon holds the key, and he's put this bill on the shelf, and we need to ask him to get it off the shelf and get it back in play. And the other thing is that some folks are saying, oh, well, it's a 2-year bill, it's a 2-year bill. But if you read the original press statement on June 23rd that Speaker Rendon put out, he said he suspended the bill indefinitely. He didn't say, I'm putting this bill down and we're going to move it for a 2-year process. He said, we're suspending this bill indefinitely, okay? That's different. So we need to put pressure on them, all of them in the assembly, to do the right thing and do what we send them to Sacramento to do, right? So, like I said, contact your legislator. And you can always contact us on our website, healthyca.org. We have lots of information on there, lots of articles. The PNHP website has a plethora of information. And we do come and do presentations and speakers training and things like that to groups. So if you have a neighborhood group or the Progressive Alliance or Democratic Club or whatever it is, someone from CNA or the Healthy California campaign, any of our allies can come and do a presentation for you. So that's it.
How would our public employers pay for the current care of their employees? I mean, there's the state, but I'm thinking also of all the small public employers, like my local school district. I'd like to be able to sell this to them and say it's a good deal, but I don't know what the answer is.
So, John, there is a committee right now working on addressing that. It's made up of some people who are with the teachers union and have addressed public entities. Also, there was a recent, I wish I had it with me, but the city of Santa Monica put out well, I'm trying to think, it wasn't actually the city of Santa Monica, it was someone who works for the city of Santa Monica who put out a study. His first name is Kevin, and I'll send it to Dr. Bill so he can forward it to you. And it talks about how much money the cities would save under a system like this.
With a 90,000 population.
Yeah, that's it. Yes. Did you see that? Yeah. So.
But how did he know what they were going to pay?
Well, that's so he came up with some figures, right? So no one has actually looked at exactly how this is something that has to be done, right? And this is the work that still has to be done, and that's what's so disappointing about the bill being off the shelf. So the legislators and the folks in Sacramento aren't working on it, but we're setting up working groups and committees to try to look at some of those things. So as soon as I have some information that I can share with you, John, I'll be happy to do that. And I'll send you that study.
See, Tina?
Yeah, one of the, I guess I want to preface this by saying that one of the problems we're running into is this top two election system that we have, where a lot of Republican money is going to the Democrat who's going to support business, and that's where the word moderate was used for business friendly or corporate friendly. But I think that one of the things that came up was sort of to speak to Mike's concern, and I think you've addressed it partially, and that was that in negotiations right now, workers give, like you say, an increase in their pay, but then when you add in the cost of the health care they have to pay for that contract, they end up either breaking even or maybe even losing some money. And so one of the things when you take health care out of the bargaining process, so workers no longer have to bargain for that, then the raises that they get will be totally increases in their pay and no longer losses or breaking even.
Yeah, thank you.
Diane?
So if I decide to be one of those selfish state retirees and move to Idaho or Nevada, what happens to my health insurance under this plan?
Well, I think that would be, if your health insurance now follows you, right? Yes, so that's something that would have to be worked out, but I don't think that your currently negotiated health plan is going to go away, especially if you're going to move away, right? So this is a good question, and these are the kinds of questions that need to be addressed. I don't have an answer for you, but that's a good question to be addressed, right?
You don't want to give up your California residency because the coverage will cover you as a California resident, no matter where you live or where you are in the world.
But if she wants to retire and move someplace else and it doesn't matter to her, she still wants to have her retiree benefit, right? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. No, that's a good question, Diane. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carolyn, I'd like you to confirm something. This spring, didn't Brendan advise the Healthy California Coalition that they should bring to the Senate purely a slimmed down policy bill without the financing and other details?
That is what I understand, that it was not necessarily a slim down bill, but a policy bill nonetheless. It was just to go through policy and that they would add the financing later.
He is
Yes.
now reversing his position, essentially, and this is becoming a huge betrayal of the entire population of the state of California.
Yeah. Call him, tell him that.
I'm anxious to get going forward and have David
Yeah.
speak. Cindy?
Yeah. Let's-
So I just
Come on,
wanna-
come here, honey.
I just want to address
Come
the issue of public schools, because I've worked in them for a long time.
Great.
Under Senate Bill 810, Los Angeles Unified School District would have saved $300 million a year if we would have had single payer under Senator Leno's bill. There is a tremendous amount of money that can be saved in public schools. One, healthcare rates are finally under control. Secondly, all the GASB liability goes away, right? And thirdly, every single employee in a school district is covered for insurance, because right now, only about 50% of school employees are covered for insurance. So if you just take that financing model and apply it, right, to what was done at LA Unified, it would be millions of dollars a year that would be saved on behalf of California's public schools. So I just wanted to say that there is a lot of work that needs to get done to take the current modeling that we have. But if we use what we know and apply that logic, right, then it would play out that there would still be millions of dollars, everybody's covered, no one has to bargain about this anymore, and you could actually teach kids.
Let's talk about the
Thanks.
7 million kids that would be completely covered. 7 million of our children would be completely covered, and that would fundamentally transform what's going on in the school system. So Carol, thank you so much.